Welcome to For Real. It's time to communicate and get real about relationships with your host, Liesel, Daisley, and psychologist, Krisnan. So join us for real. Hello and welcome to For Real. Here we discuss topics that help you navigate your relationships. I'm your host, Liesel Daisley, and joining me is life coach and psychologist, Krisnan. Welcome, Krisnan.
Thanks, Liesel, and thanks our audience for joining us.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you. Today in our episode, we're going to be discussing the core pillars of relationships. So first, let me ask you, what are some of the core pillars of a relationship?
All right, so when we talk of relationships, we're talking about romantic relationships here. We're talking about things like love, whatever that means, communication, trust, empathy or understanding, sacrifice, and feeling cared for.
Okay.
Those are some of the major pillars.
I heard you mention love, whatever that is. So maybe I can ask you, what are some of the core pillars of love?
All right, so for love, people speak of respect.
Yes.
Do I feel respected? Am I being cared for? Am I being listened to? Are they providing for my needs, or are they sharing with me?
Okay.
So that would include communication or physical or tangible gifts or whatever.
Okay.
And love is an action word.
Yes, very much so.
And different people have different meanings of how they define that word.
Yes.
And what happens is people think, oh, you're not loving me, but they're not defining the different components of what that is.
Right.
And that's what I'm seeking to break down here, define what are some of the components: respect, being cared for, being given to, being provided for, having some level of trust, and feeling like you're on the same page, in the same boat, on the same journey with someone else.
Yes, and not necessarily being showered with the most expensive gifts, like some people seem to think love is.
Well, sacrifice is important. So giving or being given is a part of it.
Right.
But
when you now expect that as a sign of the person loves you.
That's interesting. So what happens is there are certain expectations we come to the relationship with, and we expect from the person. Of course, depending on the financial status or social status that we have, there are expectations that we want or that we have. But then sometimes there can be exaggerations, or people can go above or beyond what is called for or what is needed
or reasonable
or what's reasonable there. And what tends to happen is there is a misunderstanding or an inequity in terms of what the person wants and what their partner is given to them.
Okay.
So for example, if you expect that your partner will pay for your clothes and your shoes, unless that is communicated and that is expressed, then I personally don't think it's necessary.
Right.
However, there's supposed to be a giving. Love is about sharing.
Yes.
And so it's about having an understanding between each other, what I need, what I expect, what I want you to give to me, and what you can provide, so that there isn't that inequity and that
like disconnect almost.
Yeah, between the two partners.
Okay. I heard you mention respect quite a few times earlier. So how important is self-love and self-respect, especially when you're in a relationship and you now have to give that person love and respect? Can you give love and respect if you do not love and respect yourself?
Interesting. I get asked that a lot. I think that it's important to understand yourself.
Okay.
It's important to be kind to yourself. But you don't need to be doing something to demonstrate something to yourself, or to do something to yourself to do it or to give it to someone else.
Okay.
And so, for example, if you, some people don't eat on time, they don't eat properly.
Right.
But that does not mean that you can't or you don't provide for your partner.
Okay.
For an example, you might decide, I'm going to sacrifice, and I am not going to, whether you're sacrificing or whether you're making something else in your life a priority, I am not going to
take lunch,
take vacation, but I am going to make sure that I send my partner to get a massage or to get a hairdo or whatever the case is.
Okay.
So you might not be showing it to yourself, but you are capable and you are aware of what is required and you're providing it to the other person.
Okay.
However, the degree to which you practice it, you're more likely to be able to know what to give and how to give it. So you might be more aware because you're practicing it in your own life.
Okay.
But it might not necessarily mean that you need it for yourself, or you don't need it. You don't need to be practicing it in your life to give it. So, but to be a whole person, you want whole people or healthy people coming into relationships.
For sure.
And if you're loving yourself and taking care of yourself and working on you all different aspects, spiritual, physical, emotional,
Yes.
financial, social, to whatever degree, then you are in a better place to offer that to somebody else.
Agreed.
Because you are experiencing it, you know what it feels like, and you understand what it is like to give it to someone else.
Yeah, I like that you said it's important to be a whole person when you go into a relationship.
Yeah.
Because people think, we're gonna give 50-50, but everybody really needs to give 100. Because yes, two halves make a whole, but you have two completely different people, two different backgrounds, two different ways of thinking.
Yeah.
So it's important that definitely both persons come into the relationship whole and continue to work on themselves when they're in the relationship. Speaking of working on yourself in a relationship, now if there are things about the other person that you think might need work, that you perhaps don't like about the person, should you talk to them about it and expect them to change, or should you just accept the person just as they are?
That's a good question because it comes up so often. Oftentimes when a person comes for therapy or counseling, they're doing it because there's something they aren't getting and it's causing some kind of conflict in the relationship.
Right.
It's important to have a voice in the relationship. It's important to express what your needs are. If that doesn't happen, you can begin to feel frustrated. You can begin to, or you feel suffocated.
Or maybe even resentment for the other person.
And even resentment, anger. So you want to have your needs, you want to communicate your needs and have your needs understood, at least shared. If this doesn't happen, then you feel those things. But if you do share, then it's important to share in a way that the person doesn't feel, in some cases, like, unless it is for you, like it is a must-have. Sometimes people say things in a way that makes the person think it's an ultimatum.
Right.
And in some cases, the way it's expressed is expressed in a way where I must have it now, or I must have it. So the use of the language, the way it is put over, how it is expressed is very important.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
And then, of course, there is the space between expressing the need and then, or the desire, and then the process of working it through.
Okay.
Because people have been how they are for years before they get into a relationship. And
especially people who might be in their midlife, 40s, 50s, you're pretty much set in your ways when you think about it.
very, very often.
And now
so.
to come and ask that person to change things about themselves, it would be hard.
Very often that is the case. And you don't even, well, that is true. At 25, 30 years old, you've lived 30 years of life.
Right. And you already have your isms and schisms about you.
Personality in many cases is set.
Yes.
So we have habits, we have personality, we have preferences, and then we've been through experiences from our past that we bring to the relationship.
Yeah.
So what happens is we must be aware of the fact that that person is coming with that, and then communicate our needs in a way where we are, I guess, patient or understanding that they are working through a process.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we do need to share our needs.
Okay.
We definitely do need to share our needs.
So don't just keep it all bottled up inside.
No.
And let it stifle me.
No.
Okay.
And if you're in a relationship where that isn't happening, that is definitely an unhealthy relationship where you may need to get counseling or have some kind of mediation, because you don't want to be in a place where you are just, if not existing, you're existing with those emotions of resentment and anger and frustration.
It's true.
Because it causes personal internal conflict, and then you begin to act out and do different subtle or subconscious things which can put greater strain on the relationship.
Or you may just explode one day.
Or you may just explode one day.
Yeah. All very bad.
Yeah.
Now, if I have the ideal partner in my mind and I'm in a relationship and this person is not living up to my ideal, how detrimental is that for the relationship to have this ideal person that I'm focused on and that I want and that I must have, but my partner is not that ideal person?
All right. So nobody finds a perfect person. I've seen on social media and spoken to persons that says my partner is a lot of the dream person I had in mind.
Nice.
But there are issues that I just can't
Lucky
get them
them.
to change. There's still some issues that isn't quite perfection.
Okay.
And nobody is perfect.
No.
Everybody has weaknesses, everybody has faults, everybody does things which aren't ideal at times. But it's important to, I think a point I want to bring to our attention is that the perfect person or the ideal person is a combination of qualities. Is not just a shape, an object.
Physical person.
Yeah. So you're talking things like kindness and patience and understanding and work ethic and their mindset and how well they listen and how they communicate and their passion for whatever the case is.
Right.
These are these small qualities. So I think it's useful to kind of break down what these qualities are.
Okay.
And then to understand what in my partner I am missing or is missing. So that you can you can appreciate what is good, and then you can begin to define or differentiate what are the small things that could be changed or could be worked on.
Okay. Or that can be accepted.
Or can be accepted.
Right.
Because in many cases, people don't change entirely who they are, even after going to therapy or counseling or whatever. And with all best intentions, some habits are just hard to break.
Yes.
But if I don't have the ideal partner, it is important to consider what is negotiable, what is non-negotiable, or we call them deal breakers.
Yes.
And then determine how I'm going to cope. So is it that I am going to seek some kind of, first of all, are we going to communicate? Am I communicating my needs? Am I going to seek some kind of third party, preferably not just a friend? In some cases it could be helpful, but maybe a professional or someone who isn't privy to the relationship.
Yeah, I think if you're going to be learning coping mechanisms, you definitely should get a professional.
Yeah, for sure. But you having an objective, neutral party kind of help to suggest different things that they observe and mechanisms or strategies for solving or working on that issue, managing the issue.
Yes.
So once you identify those needs, once you identify those missing things, determine what is negotiable, what is non-negotiable or deal breakers, and then you go for it. You determine what the approach will be, recognizing that your partner is again a person who's had experiences. They have everybody has experienced traumas.
Yes.
Everybody comes from a family history, a family background, so they're going to bring things with them.
Yes.
And I think at the end of the day, each partner, both partners, should be seeking to be their best self. However, you find there are some very significant qualities that people seem to miss and don't seem to want to work on. Listening or being understanding.
Right.
Being dismissive.
Yeah.
Making commitments and not keeping them. Things like hygiene could be a very, very significant factor.
Yes.
And as long as you communicate, these things can be resolved.
Yes.
But you know, in the legal setting, we talk about irreconcilable differences.
Yes.
And that's the point where we recognize, well, this thing is too burdensome, it's too overwhelming, and we've spoken about it, and it just doesn't seem that this is going to be able to be fixed.
Yes.
Or the effort isn't being made, and I cannot deal with this situation any longer. So for my own health, for the sake of our interaction and
mental health and
everything, and even the sake of children who might be involved, maybe it's best that we call it quits, that we part ways.
Yes.
And sometimes that is a good alternative, a very, 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 very feasible and healthy alternative.
Yeah. Sometimes even if it is only for a time, it doesn't necessarily always have to be a permanent situation. It can be for a time when both persons can work on themselves and then come back together for the sake of the family. That's also an option.
Yeah, most definitely. Separation sometimes gives the opportunity to think through things.
You reevaluate your life perhaps and think of your priorities.
Yeah, very much so.
Yes.
If, however, this is a cycle that keeps going on, and we separate and we get back together, and we separate and we get back together, and the things continue to be the same, then I think you might want to get, if you have not already, get in some kind of outside intervention of another party, professional preferably, and if that has been exhausted, then maybe this relationship is a healthy one. Maybe it's best that we find another way to live our lives.
Exist without each other, perhaps. Yes. But throughout the entire conversation, I hear communication really coming through. So perhaps we'll have to come back another time and look at doing an episode on communication alone and its importance in a relationship.
Yeah, most certainly. Most certainly.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on our very first episode. It was so exciting to have you join us, and we look forward to seeing you join us next time on For Real.